Dear viewers, welcome to the one-on-one set. We have with us tonight our guest Humairaa Hosenally, who is 23 years old. She is a self-published author and an emerging artist. Humairaa, thank you so much for being with us in the studio of the MBC.
Thank you so much for having me, Koyal. It's a pleasure to be here.
So Humairaa, a memoir is a narrative written from the perspective of an author, like they are telling an important part of their life. It's often conflated with autobiography, but there are a few important differences. I mean, a memoir author chooses a pivotal moment in their life and recreates that event through storytelling. The emotions and thoughts of the author are very central to the narrative. You've written a book in a Symphony, a memoir from childhood trauma to self-empowerment. Tell us more about this memoir and why have you chosen this particular moment of your life to share?
So my book, Inner Symphony, it's a memoir from childhood trauma to self-empowerment. And within the memoir itself, I told it in the form of a novel so that readers could find themselves relating to it and almost find it as a story. It is a story of a young girl who finds herself victim of her own childhood trauma and how this manifests into her teenage life and the destructive paths she chooses. It's my own story and how I chose to overcome all the abuse, the trauma, the things that I went through, and how I chose to empower myself and now hopefully empower many other people who have been through the same situation.
Yes, and I think it's also important to point out that memoir in French means memory or reminiscence. I mean, memoirs still include all the fact of the event, but the author has more flexibility because he or she is telling the story as he or she remembers it, and there's no one to prove or disprove it.
Yeah, it's subjected to the author, but I find writing as a form of art, you can make it in a way that your readers can relate to it. So while it's not such as non-fiction where it's a textbook that you learn from it, I find the memoir, it's an enjoyable piece. You can connect with the author and you grow with her and hopefully take something from it. To my best ability, I tried to use my memory and recreate this through a story at the end of the day. And I used heavily my emotions to transfer into the story because I feel like as people, we understand each other a lot since we all feel and we're all human. And the book, it's a very human and raw and authentic piece, really from the heart.
And you know, Humairaa, there are no finite type of memoir categories because just as there are no finite experiences we have as human beings, but we do have some large categories, like for example we have confessional memoir, travel memoir, but in which category do you consider Inner Symphony belongs to?
Definitely a self-help memoir. So while in a symphony, it is the story of a girl who overcomes her troubles and how she feels very empowered. My main motivation for why I wrote Inner Symphony and how it was a bigger movement, actually. I wanted to help the youth of Mauritius, young children, even older adults, even parents to help understand their children and how they could overcome, for example, abuse. I feel that while I'm young, while I have a voice, while I still can, I'll be the voice for these victims of abuse and help them overcome whatever it is, which they're too afraid to even talk to anyone about it. I really want to be that voice for people who cannot speak up and who feel guilty over the things they didn't choose to happen to them. So it is a self-help memoir.
And your book is divided into three parts: memory, escape, and return to the self. These are in fact the main themes of the book. The first part is called Memory, and you have titled your chapters as 100 Days, Abby Leaves Home, which in a way I think allows the reader to have a more intimate look in your life.
Yes, that's actually spot on. Each of the parts of the book all represent the chapters that were in it. For example, a memory is told in the form of the memories that happened, and each little chapter is very symbolic to what was going on. And actually, every chapter name is something very personal to me. And you'll find that in the escape, that's when like all the hurdles happen and she really escapes everything in life. And then is the third chapter, the part is returning back to the self, which is kind of centering back on who we are and coming back to our initial home, which is ourselves.
In a way, we can say that the memoir genre satisfies our most human desires, like to be known and to know others.
Yes, actually, it is the most meaningful journey in a way, because as a writer, it has always been my passion to write, but it's only now that I'm getting recognized for it. And while the process of Inner Symphony was a beautiful one, really challenging myself, pushing myself, I mean, you must know having your own
Yes.
show now, but the most beautiful part is the people you meet along the way, the like-minded individuals who appreciate your art, who know what you're standing for, and it really gives you this sort of faith in Mauritius at the end, that there are people out there who are willing to empower others, make a change, and thus, yeah, I believe so, that this gave me a lot of courage to continue what I do and really aim for higher.
I completely agree with you. And coming back to your book, escape is actually a very interesting theme. In Inner Symphony, the I figure is finding comfort in fantasy to escape the reality of childhood trauma. But then, as an author, you've escaped. Or should I say, you've returned back to that memory to really empower yourself and others. How do you see this journey?
Escape is definitely a big theme in the book, and I find that though there were many dark times in the book, I returned back to it to sort of take a negative occurrence and turn it into something positive. Yes, there was a lot of escapism, but what can we learn from this is that hold ourselves accountable for the things that we've done and not to blame others, not to be a victim of this circumstance, and how much better your life can be if you just own up to what's happening and not escape it and just have the courage to fight for it. And yeah, that is, in a way, going back to this memory of escapism and what it taught me of what I didn't know. Because within the book, like you must have noticed, there's the voice of the child who is unaware of what's happening, and then the one who is evolved and has seen everything. And it's almost like me talking to my younger self who didn't know what was happening and being that voice for her. And this is, in a way, the book shows the younger audiences or anybody else who's endured like abuse and all. It's like, I see you and I understand you, and here is the relatable story. But here's my voice hoping to teach you better from it and to give back what I've learned through my wisdom.
Mhm. There are for sure like two voices in the book, and I think that's the beauty about the narrative. As an author, it was important for you to juggle between your past experience and your present one to really turn this journey into a liberating transformation.
For sure. That was, in a way, my biggest mission was accepting everything that happened to me. And through that, I wanted to show others they can accept what happened to them too. Because the first step to really loving ourselves is acceptance, total acceptance of everything. And in my book, I was so raw and honest with everything that I went through and how it taught me. And it was for a bigger cause at this point. I let go of my fear of judgment, of even anyone knowing what happened, and I was like, this is to help other people out there. It's for a bigger cause. So there was that sense, yeah.
And the third part of your book, which is titled as Returning to the Self. Humairaa, why did you choose the word returning instead of finding? I mean, how do you see the difference?
That is, I really enjoy this question actually, because I was very intentional on putting returning to the self and not finding the self. Because I believe that as children, we are born who we are. And then along the way, things happen, society's expectations, our parents, even friends, just the influence of the whole world, which takes away who we really are inside. And this is when we get all these self-limiting beliefs. We think we're someone who we're not. But I feel like unlearning and in this process of healing, and you return back to who you really are at core. While it is still finding yourself, I think it's so much symbolic to be that you're returning to who you are in your eyes before the whole world got its hands on you, let's say.
You're right. I mean, to find something implies that it was missing or it's lost, but you're right here.
Yeah.
You are not missing and you're certainly not lost. You may have had experiences which resulted in disconnecting from your own self. Do you consider that adolescents or teenagers become more self conscious over time?
Um, I think for sure is that we learn with experience. So as a teenager, although age it is not a matter of fact of how much you've been through, but we lack certain exposure when we're young. And then when we grow up into our growing years, accumulating experiences, these teach us life through our own lenses. But I think it's subjective at the same time because you can choose to either be a victim of your circumstance and leave a blind eye and just be a selfish person and not learn from it. But you can also be very aware of yourself. And I feel like now with this generation and the technological advancements is we have such a massive opportunity to have like everything at the tip of our fingers. For example, YouTube is such a great platform to just go on and read Psych2Go channels, different self-help, and even reading, like for example, the authors I look up to, their journey. Compared to our parents, we have such a big advantage to do better with ourselves. So I think, yes, growing up teenagers, they can become so much more self-aware, but it always starts within the person. Like a book can tell you so much about what you can do, but if you don't want to take those steps, then no.
Yes, I think right. At a point of time, we feel that some adolescents like start turning down the volume and try to condition themselves according to the expectation of the society, which is very like saddening.
Sad is
Yes.
the perfect word for it, actually. I feel that especially in Mauritius, that people lack this self-belief of doing things differently. They follow this path that society says you must get this traditional job, study this, and then finish your life like that. And they don't see people around them doing anything different, so they must think this is the way to go. But however, I find that with my book, I want to also inspire people, not just with the journey, but for them to come out, write a book if you've always wanted to, come out with your artistic endeavors and show this to the world. And while I have met some people who've forgotten who they are and they just followed this path that was expected of them, I also met some of the most amazing people who started their own show, who wrote their own book, who are emerging in this art world in Mauritius. And I think at a time now we need this. And it gives me so much faith to just be here and be like, there is this change happening.
Indeed. And Humairaa, how do you think an adolescent can return to their own self?
I think it's very subjective again, but however, I think that doing something that connects to your solitude, you being alone, for example, me connecting with myself and returning to myself is definitely through journaling, a writer, but my passion is journaling, writing, doing something on my own that brings out this creative flow that I don't need to prove to anyone in the world. My journal is my personal journal. No one reads it. It's just for me. So I would advise all young people is to find something that is just for you. If it's a sport, a musical instrument, whatever it is, have something that is just for yourself, that you can connect and just get lost in it and be free.
I think it's all about coming to terms with whatever bad experiences you've had and finding that inner peace and really emerging out stronger out of everything.
Yeah, which is the main message of the book,
Yes.
is accepting what happened, realizing that it's beyond your control, and if you want, you can take the steps to unlearn, heal, and give back, help people who haven't realized this and just do better for the community. Yeah.
And you've said that you've written the book to inspire others, but Humairaa, when did it click that you want to share that story with the people?
It's actually a very interesting one because I never showed my writing to the world. It was always something very personal. And why I journal, I have like stacks of journals over the years. And I always told myself when I'm an old lady sitting in my chair, I'll relive my youth. Just how you look at pictures, I'll read my words, I'll feel my emotions, and I'll go back in time to those days. And there was this specific story in a symphony that I wanted to remember for like the very details. And while there was the lockdown, I was like, this is the great time to put everything together and just have the time to put this together. And initially, it wasn't meant to be showed to the world. It was just for me, like when I'm older, for myself to go over it again. But as I was coming through, I realized how free I was to the very dark things that happened. And I thought, there are people out there who still live thinking it's their fault that this happened to them, who aren't free of the things they didn't choose. So I was telling myself, I have to give back. I need to give back to my island, to those out there. Imagine there's some, when I was younger and I thought, when I Googled my issues, there was no book. I wrote what I needed when I was younger, and hopefully this will help someone else.
But how was the process to write this memoir? It must have been painful as well as healing.
It was very liberating and healing, but to heal, it's a painful process.
Exactly.
So while I was isolated, just me and my flow writing, it was very painful also. Like, I had to keep like a box of tissues with me when I was writing the very intimate parts, and my hands were shaking as I was typing and tears were just streaming down my face. But it was such a cleanse, and to reread that, I'm so detached from it in a way. It's like I let go of this thing that just wanted to emerge out, and now it lives on forever. I feel that, our dreams is something not even death can take from us. My book, this will live on forever. My art is always going to be there. So it's something that needed to come out. No matter how painful it was, I think there is so much beauty in pain and emotion.
Yes, you're right. I think that writing is indeed a therapy. I mean, as an author, when you are writing, you're translating your emotions, your thoughts into words. And when a reader, when someone is going to read that piece of writing, it may represent a sign of hope.
Yeah, the book is for hope. It has a dark twist, but in the end, it is for hope.
Indeed.
The people, yes, you can be young and do something. Yes, you can endure all of this and come out of it. It is empowering, and it gives this faith. When I was writing the book, actually, it was a very difficult process. I had to keep motivating myself, but even the smallest of things, like on my laptop, I changed my wallpaper to, by being persistent, you're showing faith. And every time I'd open my laptop, I'd be reminded of the intention, why I put this, to have faith and believe in myself, and that one day this will give others faith too, to follow through and live a more meaningful life of fulfillment and a lot of empathy too. I feel like it's time that we stop judging others and instead have empathy for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. And the most important thing is to believe in yourself and in your dreams. Everything's possible.
That is so true. The main message of the book is that you can be whoever you want, regardless of the stories you were told. And you can do whatever you want to do, regardless whoever says no. It's just, all you need really is that self-belief and a vision. And you can get to crazy heights of whatever you want. We're limitless at the end of the day.
Yes. Humairaa, symphony is often associated with music, harmony. Why did you choose the title Inner Symphony?
I love this question because I never get asked. No one ever asks why Inner Symphony. I think it's just become so related to the book that we forget that there was so much put behind this title. It is someone battling with their own inner journey and how their journey of self-love evolves. So the word symphony actually, music was one of the forms of artistic expressions that helped me throughout this journey. Without music, I don't think it would have been such a beautiful journey. And now that I listen back to the music that I did, it takes me back to day one, before any of this happened. And why a symphony? Well, in classical music, a symphony, as compared to a sonata, it's written for a whole orchestra rather than just one or two instruments. And so the Inner Symphony, it shows that within us, when we have this journey of evolving inside, our journey of self-love and acceptance, our outer world changes too. So it's like this, in a symphony, it's like you have different segments, which is just like in the book, 3 parts. It can be slow, fast here, but it is the journey of it, the symphony of it, the whole listening of the whole orchestra. And I find that now that even the book is out, I'm very happy with it. I'm fulfilled, but the most fulfilling part was the journey of it and the steps of watching it grow. And I think that's life too. It's not about the end goal, but it's about the journey of it.
That's a beautiful analysis, I must say. It's like going the flow.
Of course.
Yes, and Inner Symphony is a book that you've mainly written to inspire, motivate others. How was the reception? Share with us the feedbacks that you've got from your readers.
So, because it's such a book of honesty and it's very dark too. I had so much fear of judgment. I was like, oh my God, everyone's going to know, my family's going to know what happened, and also I was very afraid. But at the same time, I was like, I had this word in my head that just said surrender. Surrender, put yourself, it was like stripping myself naked in the face of just vulnerability. And this gave the most positive feedback that of course I had criticism here and there, but the response was just phenomenal. It was magical. The way that younger people told me it helped them and how they started like going out of their way and doing their things. And I thought it would just be a book to help young people, but parents were so attached to this book too. It changed their parenting style, the way they understood their child, and different kinds of people. I thought I was mainly targeting just young adults who were females, but this spanned on so many managers, parents, even family. It had such, I think in a way, because it's such a human book and we can all relate to dark times, people couldn't really judge at the end of the day because we are all human and we all go through these things. So the response was so comforting and so uplifting, which told me I need to keep doing this and this is my calling.
The book represents a piece of your heart, but how did you deal with the criticism?
So I feel like dealing with criticism, you have to have a lot of this self-belief. Like, you know what you stand for and you know what it is. It's not for everyone at the end of the day. We have to accept that everyone is subject to their own ideas, and if someone does not resonate with them, it's on them. And I learned to just detach from it, because at the end it's my work, and though it is my work, I'm very detached from it. You know, when something's so overwhelmingly positive, it's the same I find with like fear and confidence. I had so much fear writing the book, but I had to silence it. And the more that you do things, the more you accumulate confidence. The fear, it's always going to be there, but it's silenced. Same with the criticism. There's a lot of positivity, but the criticism, it's like silence. I choose to focus on the good side.
I was about to say that always focus on the brighter side of
Yes.
life. Humairaa, you are also an emerging artist. How did you develop that passion to draw and paint?
It has always been part of me, actually, since I was very little. It was my solace, art, escaping in drawing and writing. It's only now that I'm getting recognized from it, and being recognized from it, this changes the game, because now you can monetize your passion. So now I have to actually think. I'm learning along the way, and however, being surrounded by different creative people and hearing their input, it makes it very enjoyable about like what we can do, and think, what are the things that I'd like to show? So I feel that while it's always been a passion, now that including the rest of the world, it makes it so much more meaningful. Like, it's crazy what you have in there, you share it out, and people have their own experience. So yeah, it has been a journey, I'd say. I'm
Yes.
still learning.
I mean, you've already got magic in your hands.
Thank you.
How is your identity as an author or an artist have really forged your personality?
So like I said, these were aspects of myself that have always been there, but now it's just getting recognized. I feel like there were these bits of myself that were hidden, which I didn't think the world would understand or enjoy. Like, they were so personal. You think, no one will ever know this. It's just for me. But now I feel like being able to talk about these things and come through, I think it's given me a lot of confidence to accept these parts of myself. And it's a lot of a learning journey, really. Like, every day is a new day, new opportunities every single day. So I'm learning who I am really. Like, you think these hidden parts, they're just there, but when they come out, it's a whole new world. It's like giving birth to a child, you know? You
Yes.
have to keep evolving with it.
We are actually drawing towards the end of this episode, but before that, Humairaa, any advice you would like to share with our youngsters to tell them to never give up and always emerge out stronger out of any situations like you've done?
Definitely. My first one is ignore the people who say no. People will always doubt you. Like, with my book, I didn't tell anyone about it because I didn't want to hear them saying it's not possible. Ignore the naysayers. They're always going to tell you you can't do it. Go for it anyway. I was told, especially, people in Mauritius don't read. But my response is, yeah, this is why we should write. This is why we should write something that the readers want to read. So if it's never been done before, you do it. Don't be afraid to. So ignore the people that say no, and definitely you're always going to feel fear. You just have to do it anyway. So feel the fear and do it anyway. And lastly is just aim high. Aim very high and have that vision and just keep going and make it an enjoyable experience. You know, it's life, it's your life. You do whatever you want with it, but just believe in yourself.
Thank you so much, Humairaa. It was such a pleasure to have you on the set of One on One. We've had a beautiful talk.
We did. Thank you so much for having me, Koyal. It's been a pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for your time. We will now see you in 2021. The MBC team and I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.